Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's React News webinar, which is being hosted in partnership with the University of Manchester. The topic today is furthering your education and career in commercial real estate. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Borland. I'm one of the editorial directors at React News. React launched around about 18 months ago and has quite quickly become the most trusted source of intel, analysis and insight for the commercial real estate market in the UK and Europe. We currently have around about 18,000 people reading our news on a daily basis. Prior to React, I've had about as varied career as someone that graduated with a postgrad in real estate that anyone can have. I've done agency, valuation, data, property PR, and obviously now journalism. Hopefully that makes me well placed to moderate today's all-star panel, who I will introduce to you very shortly. Today's topic is particularly apt, I think, at the minute, how to further your education and career in property. The industry is very enriching and nuanced, and there's a massively wide opportunity of courses and career avenues available. Asset management, agency, sustainability officer, corporate finance, auctions, fund management. The list really goes on and on. However, it has always been an industry that ebbs and flows with the wider economy. There's no getting away from the coronavirus crisis and the impact that will have had on many businesses within the sector in terms of transactions, revenues, and future strategies. However, market downturns are always followed by upturns. And today's panel will talk us through the opportunities that lie in the sector, the ways to get ahead, how to upskill, and hopefully provide people with a little bit of insight for career progression as well. That panel session will go on for about 40 minutes or so, after which I'll introduce Craig Donaldson from the University of Manchester, who will give a very brief speech on the university's flexible and online approach to learning. After that, we'll be joined for the finale by our guest speaker today, Franco Sidoli, or commonly called Franco in the market. He is one of the UK's top commercial real estate advisors, and his storied career involves many of the standout commercial real estate transactions in the UK. That should go on for about 20 minutes. For all of you who have logged in and signed in today, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom box. I would encourage you to send over any questions you have today for the panel, and I will endeavour to ask those out as well. Okay, so thank you to today's panel for joining us. We have got a mixed panel today of some rising stars and some experienced hands in the industry, and I'm going to get you all to introduce yourself. So we will start with Elizabeth, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth. I am currently an investment analyst at British Land. I joined in 2018 as the first graduate in the investment team at BL. And I guess the difference between most graduates who go into real estate is you rotate across different teams in the company. I've had the benefit and the opportunity to build almost 3 years of experience in investment at British Land, where I work with all corners of the business. I have since become an analyst and continue to work on property acquisitions and disposals across the company's retail and office portfolios. And I guess previously my first degree was in financial mathematics at Surrey, and I'm currently a distance learning master's student at Manchester studying real estate.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And we'll go over to you next, Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Horrell. I'm the CEO for Colliers International in the UK and Ireland. Colliers International is a real estate services company who provide advice to a variety of clients. We're a global business with about 17,000 people across the world. And I look after a group here in the UK and Ireland of about 900 people. So very different to Elizabeth. I started in this industry after my first degree, and my first degree was a real estate degree on July the 28th, 1982. So I've seen a few decades, and I've seen a few booms, and I've seen a few busts, etc. So I think I've come from the experienced end of the panel, but I still feel very young in that respect. Primarily, my real estate surveying background was in the capital market space, so the investment and capital market space. but looking at the world locally in London, across the country, and then a large part of my career spent in terms of Europe and indeed globally. So I've covered quite a few things across the world in my time, and still do a little bit of that as well.
Thanks, Tony. And over to you, Kathryn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathryn Cripps. I am a partner at Knight Frank. I started Knight Frank on our graduate scheme in September 2008, so the same time as Lehman Brothers collapsed. I've done 12 years in London office leasing, and I now work in our asset management division. A little bit about me: I am passionate about championing modern working cultures and diversity at our firm, but also throughout the industry.
Thank you, Kathryn. And over to Will from Crosstree to tell us a little bit about himself.
Thanks, Chris. I'm not sure, I'm definitely not a rising star, and I'm not sure I'm experienced, but I've been at Crosstree. I'm a partner at Crosstree, joined there 9 years ago, although a bit like React News, we try and think of ourselves as a sort of young startup. We're a team of about 12, so pretty small, pretty lean. And we are a kind of UK-focused private equity investor. So we'll invest, into standing investments, developments, corporate situations, even source debt to other real estate developers and borrowers. And we're pretty broad-based in terms of sectors we'll look at. So we've been active across hotels, which has been a lot of fun and games through COVID. Offices, retail, residential, and more recently student. I guess my route into property was a little less traditional. I was in banking for 5 years or so prior to joining Crosstree. I was at Bank of America Merrill Lynch from 2006 to 2011, so sort of through the credit crunch in a kind of real estate corporate finance role. And prior to that, at University of Bristol.
Thank you, Will. Okay, we'll kick off the discussion today. I'm going to ask Elizabeth. I think everyone would like to know, Elizabeth, after you've got a job in real estate, you've got a job at British Land, why did you decide the time was right to do a postgraduate degree?
So I previously mentioned my first degree was in financial mathematics at Surrey, and studying maths gives you a lot of options, I guess real estate investment being one of them. But venturing into the industry was quite new for me. You can never take away on-the-job training, but deciding to study real estate at Manchester alongside my role has helped put many things in perspective. Which brings me on to the benefits of that. Studying real estate whilst in the industry is probably one of my greatest achievements. It's not easy studying and working at the same time. It brings your skill set, industry knowledge, and academia together. The masters actually complements my day job quite well. They cover modules such as property valuation, investment finance, which goes into the deeper theory of what we do and how we do it. And the masters also teaches other modules that basically view every aspect of real estate and all corners of the industry, which is really good. And enables you to think critically, make well-justified decisions, and provide a solid foundation of the industry. So basically putting practical and theory together, which has worked quite well for me so far.
Great, Elizabeth. And Tony, obviously, you said you've got 900 people at Colliers. It's a big old beast. And what benefit do you see in postgraduate education? And are there a large proportion of your staff members that choose to study and work at the same time? And how does Colliers support and nourish that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, Chris, it's funny. I also personally in my career, I think between the ages of 27 and 29, took an MBA over sort of part-time MBA for 2 years that a previous employer sort of sponsored me through. And at that stage of my career, to learn how to learn again was a really interesting challenge, But I learned, or what it really taught me was an awful lot about myself and the effect that I could have on others. So that was quite an interesting way of coming out of doing deals for a little while. and sort of put me on to the next stage of my career. But as far as Colliers is concerned, we like to have a sort of a mix of people. One of the things about Colliers is we don't want everybody to be the same. So we don't want robots. We want people who could think for themselves, but more importantly, are entrepreneurial in their outlook. Obviously, being a real estate services provider, our business is really all about our people being motivated, and they can be motivated by, you know, growing their skills, being stretched, having a boss that understands them, feeling fairly rewarded for their efforts, etc., working with colleagues that they like. But those people getting on with a whole bunch of other people who happen to be individuals who work for logos who are our clients. So the people interaction for us and learning their people skills are really key, which is probably why one of the things that we often look for are things that can't necessarily be taught. We look for sort of attitude, work ethic, resilience, and to a certain extent, we often say to ourselves in early careers, soft skills are probably more important than technical skills, because technical skills you can pick up over time. So nobody should be afraid of coming into our industry. It's character that we like to have. And so that's to a degree how we try and not mold our people, because we definitely don't want to mold them. We don't want everybody looking the same. We like to have some level of flexibility. Great,
thanks, Tony. I'm sure that probably chimes with the attitude at Knight Frank, Kathryn, but I am briefly wondering, when you went back to do your postgrad in real estate, were you aware of the breadth of careers available in property? Did you always know you wanted to do agency followed by asset management, or how did that work, and how did you think about that?
Well, I did quite a lot of work experience, so I did understand what agency was and consultancy, and I really enjoyed agency, but I was quite keen to remain open-minded, I think, and I certainly didn't know that I wanted to go into agency specifically or asset management. And I think, yeah, just sort of touching on Tony's point, which I think is really interesting in terms of the way that we look to recruit. You know, my personal opinion is that it's all changing quite a lot at the moment, isn't it? And I think probably what we're looking for from our graduates and new recruits is probably quite different to what we were looking for 5-10 years ago. And especially at the moment with all these technological advances, innovation, and obviously even more change during COVID, we probably need people who are agile and able to adapt. And as Tony also said, like a bit of entrepreneurial spirit is probably really important. I think where the fact that people who are able to sort of challenge the status quo and come up with ideas and wanting things to change are going to be really, you know, innovators are going to be really important in our businesses. Because at the end of the day, the property industry probably does still have quite a long way to come and quite a long way to go, and it's got to move fast to stay relevant.
Indeed, yeah. And will that entrepreneurial spirit, is that part of the reason you packed in banking and moved across to real estate and the various different things you can get your teeth into? I'm just wondering a little bit behind that.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm probably getting bored of staring at spreadsheets at a bank at 3 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it's funny whenever it's a question, and by the way, anyone who's applying for any real estate job will always get asked, why do you want to go into real estate? So make sure you've got a well-prepared answer. And it's actually harder now you put it on to me than I thought. But I guess people always come back to this idea that it's tangible. And I know what they mean, and I could really understand that from banking, where you're just checking if you have the right number of zeros or whatever in your numbers. But it's the idea that you can kind of be involved or create something and create value, and do that, I guess, in a really fun and sociable context. So, you know, it's a great sort of community, and yeah, it's the idea of actually being part of a project and part of a community, I suppose.
But obviously, Crosstree is not what you would label as a traditional real estate company, is it? It's certainly not a company. When I was doing my MSc, I would have known much about the different threads of what you do there. And can you explain a little bit about how the model works and the various different careers that you know are available in the likes of a company like Crosstree?
Yeah, sure. So, so I guess, I mean, I guess we'd be bracketed as a real estate private equity investor. So you're very much more kind of opportunity led than have specific sector parameters. So you'll be kind of looking for investment opportunities. I don't know, perhaps it's where no one else wants to look at it, so you think it makes sense and looks interesting, or there's an incentivized, seller and a situation where something can happen. So we don't have kind of, our strategy is almost there is no strategy in terms of what we'll look at. Which is fun and interesting and I guess challenging in certain ways. In terms of the sorts of sort of skill sets we have here, I mean, it's as I said, it's a dozen or so people, so it's a small team, and you actually all get a bit involved in everything. So this morning at 8 o'clock, I was going around a building. At 10 o'clock, I was sitting on a leasing call on one of our existing projects. So it's quite varied. In terms of sort of skills that we look for in people, I think academic rigor, I think, is a sort of prerequisite generally, probably across the industry. But I guess some charisma and real, I guess, passion for the industry, and I think that goes a long way in whatever industry you're in. If you're really passionate about it, I think that really helps. And I think definitely everyone at Crosstree is really excited by our own projects and passionate about the wider industry.
Thanks, Will. I mean, really, all four of you touched on it. It's a people game property, and I'm quite interested in how does real estate still attract the best people to the industry? And I mean, obviously, there's the growing tech firms and of all the benefits they offer people. Tony, I'll throw this across to you first. And how does property keep ahead of the game and still get the best people? Sorry, Tony, you're still on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm not now. So does it always get the best people is probably the question, isn't it? I'm sure it doesn't always get the best people, but partially the real estate industry suffers a little bit from itself. So a good proportion of people who join the real estate industry actually come from sort of cognate real estate degrees, first degrees, and they get to know about those because of friends, family, and all the rest of it, which is sort of the old way of doing it, and that's still a reasonably big proportion. The industry is fighting pretty hard, certainly amongst the real estate services companies and others, to broaden the pond, let's call it, where we fish for future talent, taking into account all sorts of diversity in there, so we get the widest possible scope. So I can't promise that we do get the widest possible scope at the moment, but we're certainly alive to it, and we try and think about it. One of the approaches that we've taken, by the way, is to look at things on a broad base across different universities across the country, not go fishing in the same pond that everyone else does, because we want people to come and be from, being based in different locations, or indeed we want them to come from different backgrounds, and therefore, rather than just picking everyone from the southeast or London or middle of the country or whatever, we think that creates a healthy sort of environment, as well as overseas and and all the rest of it, which is probably pretty key. One of the things that it's really important for real estate to try and explain is that we're not estate agents, but we're involved in something which adds value to society and appreciates the wider society that we all are part of, or the wider environment, whichever way around it is. And to sort of break it down in those terms, that you're actually adding something rather than taking something away. And that's quite key, I think, in terms of younger generations coming forward, wanting to participate and add something to the world. So I think we need to sell ourselves, it's not just about bricks and mortar and buildings and all the rest of it. It's far, far bigger than that. And the responsibility we have through the built environment all around the world to make change is enormous over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus. You're on mute, Chris.
Sorry. Kathryn, is property cool enough for Generation Z?
I don't know, I'm not sure whether Generation Z are concerned with being particularly cool, but as you say, the tech companies, they're offering some pretty great perks, which I'm sure are attractive. You know, I heard yesterday, I think that Apple and Google are offering 15 grand towards fertility treatment, for example, but they're also got on-site gyms and free food and snacks and things like that. And I think it's quite difficult. I think in the property industry, just make baby steps rather than strides when it comes to trying to attract different talent and the right talent. But my opinion of the next generation is that actually they're most concerned about well-being and working for really authentic companies and where people can express themselves and that are kind of attractive for lots and lots of different types of people. And, you know, as Tony's touched on this, the issue that we have with having very middle class, British educated people within our organisations and all our teams made up of very formatted, similar people is a real problem because for a start, these teams and these are not particularly fallible. And I think the more women we get into our businesses, the more diverse people we get from a background, then the more authentic these teams will be. And therefore, people from the diverse backgrounds will be able to thrive within these teams, which at the moment, I think is something that we're falling down on. And until we do this, I think we probably will not be particularly cool or attractive for that generation.
And are steps been taken to address that? Do you think we're heading in the right direction? And what else can be done to really push that diversity and also socioeconomic kind of, as Tony said, widening the pool? That's to anyone who wants to enter it.
Can I jump in there? I think it's recognised and steps are taken and have been taken by certainly, you know, a number of the large companies, but whether it's enough and whether it's quick enough is what the debate always is. What I'm really pleased about, certainly, you know, and I've been in this industry a long time, is that it's actually got to the table, it's talked about, it's realised, people are doing something about it, and leaders are doing something about it. Certainly, and that's accelerated a lot over the course of the last 10 years, which is excellent. So. But I think that we, and as a leader, I recognise that it still needs to change more. One of the things that I've often thought about is that, you know, we have outreach to schools and all the rest of it that other people do. But one of the things I've often thought about is whether or not it will be simpler to have something which is part of the traditional education system as an introduction to property. So if there were, for example, an A-level in real estate, that could be recognised by the educational authorities and therefore adopted by schools, colleges, sixth form colleges, etc., public schools, it would actually be a great learning platform for quite a few people as an introduction to the industry. And I think if the RICS, for example, were prepared to give some sort of credence to such an A-level, in terms of maybe it counted partly towards graduate qualification or something like that, I think that would be a great door opener. So it has some complications in terms of writing a prospectus, but this industry has all sorts of abilities of individuals, but also things like the College of Estate Management could actually write a prospectus probably quite quickly. I think it's possible to do it. It just would need the political backing to do it.
I think that's definitely interesting. I think you know, we're talking about recruiting here, and in a way, it's almost easy to recruit. Well, it's not easy to recruit from diverse backgrounds, as we know, but you know, it's easy to put in these initiatives. But a large part of this also is retaining these people. You know, we can bring them in, but are we retaining them in our industry and in our firms? You know, are they thriving and doing well? And what do we do to sort of make that better?
Kathryn. Elizabeth, I'm wondering a little bit about your work-life balance at British Land and how that looks and works. And I presume BL is a a 21st century company, and obviously everyone's working from home now, but just wondering how you find working there.
I guess this is probably a bit of a promotion to Manchester and British Land, but the benefits of the master's course for me at Manchester is like each module is actually done individually. So you're actually working on one module at a time for a period of 10 weeks, nothing else but that module. For example, real estate markets or real estate investment and finance. It allows you to manage your time quite well. Well, for me personally, you can put 100% of your focus to one module at a time rather than juggling multiple ones, which you will see in the general format of masters or undergrads. And it really helps me manage my time personally. You have to be a little bit strict with your time too. I guess I say come in, but I probably log in about 7:30 on each day, aim to finish my work by about 5:36, which doesn't seem like a lot of time to get your day job done, but you have to be very disciplined if you actually want to further your career. And, you know, from about 6 onwards, I'm probably studying until about 9, and you probably do that for about 2 years, but 2 years is quite a short time in comparison to how long you will be working in a certain industry for. And British Land are very, very supportive of that. And I guess working in investment kind of has its benefits. It's really quiet, or it can be really, really busy. In times where it's busy, again, managing your time for the benefits of sometimes when it is quiet. For example, beginning of COVID, you had quite a lot of deals being put on hold. You can actually spend your time studying, which I'm quite grateful that British Land have actually supported me through that. And we've got about a year to go, so all positive at the moment.
And I suppose it's all about career progression really for you, isn't it? And that's the basis of this, and you think that gives you the springboard you need to build your career in real estate going forward?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also currently enrolled to do my APC, probably sit in about 2 years. I thought I should give myself some time, do at least 1 year of the masters, see how I manage my time that way. And I thought I've done okay in managing that, and then just adding on the extra qualification. But it's all about getting a wide range of experience. To do the APC, most of you will know you probably have to show that you're able to do your job, but in different sectors. And I obviously just sit in investment, but the benefits of I can make my APC what I want it to be. So I can sit in the asset management team for a week or two, or sit in the analyst team for a week or two, basically giving me the well-rounded experience basically to pass my APC, which is good.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Will, your partner at Crosstree, could you give us a little bit of insight on what you think your tips for getting ahead in the industry and career progression, and what you would recommend to the people tuning in?
Yeah, sure. So I have no qualifications apart from a university degree, I suppose. So feeling quite inadequate compared to everyone else on the call. But I do think they're actually really valuable at the moment, particularly when it's quite a challenging kind of, employment environment at the moment. I mean, in terms of career advice, I think your first rung on the ladder is obviously it's always the hardest, but it's also in a way the most important. I think it's really important to get, a great name on your CV as a sort of springboard for what you might want to pivot into sort of further down the line. And in terms of sort of other career advice, I think, we've touched on it a few times. It's a really sociable industry. Just, don't ever turn down any kind of coffee or, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person. You just got to be tenacious and meet as many people as you can. It might give you, opportunities, in terms of career or just, expanding your network and your personal brand. Or even ideas if you're someone like a Crosstree and you're sitting there trying to figure out what your next investment should be. So meet as many people as you can, and you never know where opportunity may lie, I suppose.
Thanks, Will. And obviously technology is everywhere, and nothing's going to stop the advance of technology, but interesting, do you think if property always has been a people game, and do you expect that to continue through technology advances as well?
I mean, I think we will see we'll certainly see changes over the next 10 years in terms of, you might start to see, I mean, pretty much across all service industries, right? And I don't think property is immune from it. You're going to see, more jobs that that don't need to be done necessarily by people. But I don't think it changes the sort of underlying fundamentals, you know, in terms of needing people to manage buildings, people to stock pick which investment they want to go for, and so on. So I don't think it changes things fundamentally. It might just sort of slightly, you know, reduce certain roles or change certain roles. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything to add on the tech side?
Let me. I mean, I think the technology piece, or it certainly changed our industry and will continue to change the industry that we're in. But I was thinking of this from a sort of a people point of view. Look, data is key in our industry. You know, data is available everywhere and it's supplied by all sorts of suppliers and etc. But it's sort of what you do with it and how you interpret it, how you use it for advice and opportunity, etc. So being pretty good with your interpretation of data to give clients insights, I think is a sort of key skill that we would obviously look for. That whole problem solving piece. And I was thinking about this as well, the sort of, let me use the word willingness to both explore but satisfy client needs. So that's an attitudinal thing more than anything, but that's important for us. And obviously, particularly bearing in mind what's happened in these last 6 or 8 months, being flexible or being able to accept change with ease. So rather than being an individual in a career that, you know, this is what I do and how I do it and where I do it from, I think the opportunities and the challenges thrown up by the last 8 months have meant that you're looking for people that can, quite frankly, be resilient and bounce back. And those are things that you can certainly learn through experience, but are inbuilt skills which, you know, are very important people skills for us. And I think more than ever, you know, I think someone used the word flexibility right at the beginning of our discussion. We're sort of now looking for more agility, more flexibility in thinking from individuals, rather than this is the way that they sort of do things or expect to do things.
Thanks, Tony. Kathryn, Tony mentioned flexibility there. It wouldn't have been that long ago when if someone was, they finished their APC and they were doing office agency and that was their career for the next, you know, X amount of years. Do you think that's changed slightly and people will have a more storied career through property and they'll touch on different facets on it and get involved in different things, maybe more so than has historically happened?
Well, I think, you know, because of COVID and lockdowns and having to work from home, the property industry has had to move really fast in that arena, which is brilliant. But what I do think is key and will be fascinating, because I think it's pretty clear that most teams can function in this manner and continue to function really well, is whether or not managers still believe that is possible, insofar that when someone's trying to recruit an associate or a partner or a graduate into a new role, are they going to advertise those roles as, you know, being able to work with flexible working arrangements? I think that's really interesting. And I think when we get to a place whereby our transactional teams are confident enough to advertise a role in that manner, then I think that will be proof that we're making great strides.
And Elizabeth, have you worked across various service lines at British Land, or just kind of more been focused on investment in your first couple of years?
Yeah, so I've actually just been in investment since I have started, but we'll be doing a short secondment in the analyst team who focus on valuations here at British Land. So all I can talk about is investment at the moment.
Great, thank you. Obviously, I'm kind of quite interested. Is there anything, any of the panel would what you wish you had known when you were starting off in the industry that you do know now, that you can impart onto our young viewers at the minute?
Yeah, hindsight's wonderful, isn't it? One of the things that I've learned over quite some time is that to to get things done, to move the needle with client groups, things that are cross-border. The important thing is to invest in people and invest in ideas rather than it's a good idea and let's get some people to do it. So you find the right people with the right skills and the right attitudes to do something and pick it up. It's much easier to grow an enterprise rather than put the wrong people in the wrong places, which I know sounds logical. But real estate industries traditionally did things in a very traditional way, by hierarchy, etc. And it's probably in more recent years that that's changed. So I sort of utilize a phrase here at Colliers for everybody, which allows for failure. So I'd far rather that people beg for forgiveness rather than seek permission every time, because that way it brings a diversity of spirit and can-do attitude to trying new things rather than doing the same things and making something traditional as it always was. So to have an environment where people can make mistakes, I think is really key for a company and being able to grow. Obviously, one of the interesting challenges of the last 6 or 7 months, all of our offices remain open, and some people come in because they prefer to do so for mental health or getting together or whatever it might be. But we've not had everybody in all of the time over the last 6 or 7 months. Has been, what's been the effect on cross-fertilization of ideas, new thinking outside of the box when they're just doing stuff. And I do think that, the continual remote working has had a dampener effect on that level of productivity. And I think, when this is all over and we get back to a bit more normality, yes, we can have our agile working and flexible working approach to life, but I think people do like to mix with others like themselves.
Great. You did touch on it there, Tony, but I'm going to throw this over to Kathryn and Will just now. And it's quite a tough time for I would say junior people in property who are looking to upskill, and quite a lot of these jobs are probably done by osmosis. Is it difficult to manage a team and impart your knowledge on the next generation and younger surveyors or asset managers or finance professionals in the current environment?
Yeah, I think it is, and I guess I would say to sort of younger, less experienced team members, like try and stay visible to the team. So turn your video on, turn your mute off, and try and get as much face time, whether it's behind a screen or in person, with the rest of the team, because I think it's really good, and I think it's really challenging if you're relatively early stage in a career and you've had half the time you should have had with the senior guys. And as you say, osmosis is exactly how you learn, I think, through pretty much any workplace. So I think there's as much interaction as you can have with your senior colleagues, and then I suppose on top of that, read widely, go on lots of React webinars, and just try and stay as sort of rounded as you can, really.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I've actually recently just started a new role, and so I completely realised how tricky it can be as a graduate in a new team. And yeah, I think the learning process probably is a fair bit slower, not being with your team all the time and overhearing things. But I think a lot of these offices are open, and if you feel comfortable, I think it probably is worthwhile being in the office as well, because whilst your immediate team might not be in, I imagine you probably pick things up from people next to you and neighbouring teams as well. But again, as Will says, otherwise you're on your video, be visible, be ready, talk, speak up, and yeah, just try and keep as much interaction as possible with the teams.
Elizabeth, we've had a couple of questions from people viewing in on how you're finding learning from your team remotely as well.
As in from my masters.
I know from your it's from your British land role.
From my British land, I guess for me, because I've had 2 years under my belt before COVID actually hit, and we have quite a small team. I'm a team of 5 in investment. I know my team quite well. So it kind of felt really, I feel quite comfortable in, you know, in my job and interacting with people. And I have quite a lot of exposure to the agents and lawyers, etc. at this moment in time. So I guess advice that I have for them is, yes, very similar to Will and Kathryn, just put yourself out there, put your camera on, unmute yourself, continue to ask questions. You know, ask questions for a certain amount of time before you get a bit too old. And yeah, just keep learning, join webinars like this, and just keep showing that you're eager to learn more and I'm eager to develop yourself in the industry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Tony, something I hadn't really thought about earlier, but we've actually had a few questions from people that are tuned in, is obviously there have been some redundancies across the industry just now, and what that will mean going forward next year is there's some very experienced people, but you wouldn't actually call them the next generation coming through, people with, you know, 10, 15, 20 years experience in real estate. They're slightly concerned about how they get back into the industry. What do you have to say to them?
Sure. So yeah, and I'm aware of what's sort of got on. I mean, fortunately here at Colliers, we haven't been through very much of that, which is good. Looking to the future. Look, I'm pretty optimistic about 2021 and looking forward. I think it's a time to be positive. There'll be some sectors that will take a little bit of time to bounce back properly, but I think, you know, all things are set now for a positive bit of sunshine on the horizon, with obviously, you know, recent news, etc. The industry, that means the industry will fill up again, and it will have demands on for skill sets, and it will have demands for increasing workforces and all the rest of it. So I think for those people, those opportunities will come. They might not come immediately, but those opportunities will definitely come. Certainly from our point of view, we regard the current time as a time of great opportunity to get talent to come and work for us, actually. So, you know, we've certainly got some growth plans in many areas going forward, literally currently and into the next few months, for bringing on board more people, and not only at a junior level, at all sorts of levels in order to build bench strength. So we think it's actually a time of, you know, potential opportunity in that respect.
Great, thank you, Tony. Well, remarkably, we've come to, time is up already. There actually are a few other questions within the Q&A function that we haven't answered, and I just want to say to people, we will reply to those via email when we can. I want to thank the panel today for their time and the really interesting chat. It was really good. Thanks, guys. What's going to happen now is I'm going to introduce Craig Donaldson, who's a course advisor at the University of Manchester, and Craig will speak a little bit about what Uni of Manchester has to offer and their online and flexible learning approach. Thanks, panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris. Thanks very much. And thanks again to everybody on the panel. It was really interesting, especially to Elizabeth, who's joined me for quite a few webinars that we've run for the University of Manchester as well. So I appreciate her giving up her time. So as Chris said, I'm Craig Donaldson from the University of Manchester, and I am a course advisor for our online and blended learning course, or MSc real estate course. So Elizabeth touched on it earlier, as our course is flexible. It's delivered online, and there are blended elements to it, but given the certain circumstances at the moment, the elements where you may have attended conferences or workshops at the University of Manchester have been delivered online, which seems to have been successful. Other elements that are flexible as well, Elizabeth also mentioned it, is that a lot of questions I'm asked as a course advisor is, how do I go about studying? When should I do it? And it's really, I guess it is as flexible as it says. You can build that in around your work, your family life, as long as you're meeting the 20 hours commitments to the course on a weekly basis. It's up to you how you structure that. There's always support available as well. We have study advisors that will assist people with non-academic queries. They have contact with their academics depending on which module they are on. So there's plenty of support. Even though it is online, people shouldn't feel that they're going to be isolated and having to take on the learning themselves. I guess another key feature of the course as well, that it is RICS accredited. I am asked that quite regularly as well, and I know that's an important feature of the course as well. We have a real mixture of professional learners in our current cohorts as well, and that can't be forgotten really. It's a great opportunity for anybody that joins the course to create links, build partnerships with people. It's just a fantastic opportunity to network. And so really what I guess I'm here to say really is that our recruitment window is open now for our February 2021 cohort. So we are receiving applications. They're coming through to us quite regularly now, so which is quite exciting. But people can access the application form on the course webpage, but people can get in touch with me, which I presume my details will be shared later on, Chris, towards the end of the today's webinar. So really, I guess I'm encouraging people to get in touch if they've got questions around, typically people ask me around entry requirements, how to proceed with the application process. People ask me around fees, and there are a range of discounts available that people may be eligible for. And again, people will get in touch with me to ask questions on that. And by all means, anybody who's joined us today, please do so. And I think, Chris, that is probably about as much as that I will go into today. I've probably plugged my course enough now. So I'll hand back over to you, and I'm really interested to hear, as you mentioned, Franco's presentation now. So thanks very much, and I hope to hear from everybody soon.
Thank you, Craig, and a great plug for University of Manchester there. Enjoyed that, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, and we're now moving on to the final part of today's webinar and speech series, which obviously is hosted in partnership with University of Manchester. And I'd like to join Franco Sidoli, who is just dialed in. There we go, Franco, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm very, very, very well.
I've had to find an office to come and do this from, because we've moved back into our old house, rebuilt, and every day's an adventure. So I had to come in and find a connection that worked.
Yeah, likewise, me too. Not that you probably need an introduction, but I'll do it anyway for everyone that's tuned in.
Don't overegg it.
I'll try my best not to. Franco
underplay it.
Franco is one of the UK's most experienced and high-profile commercial real estate advisors. A massively storied career, from setting up his own niche agency to more latterly working as a consultant with CBRE, and he's been behind many of the UK standout real estate transactions over the years, including I would say a bit of a specialism in shopping centres down the line as well. Thank you for joining us today, Franco. And
no problem.
I mean, obviously we've just had a great panel discussion, and people have talked about entry into real estate and why they went into it. How did you make your way into property?
I sort of fell into it really. My family ran a catering business in East London when I was growing up. That we had no real experience in the business, other than my dad bought a piece of real estate that we occupied, and was then sort of got involved in piecing together a development site for a developer that he just happened to meet coincidentally, and kind of whilst he was running his business and doing all that, he kind of got a bit of a taste for property. I decided that I wasn't gonna. I wanted to be a professional. I wanted to have sort of letters after my name was my obsession when I was growing up. None of my family had been to university at the time. And I decided accountancy wasn't for me, because that seemed a bit boring, and legal work was a bit too much like hard work. So I thought being a surveyor and getting out on site and being able to be in the office and be out of the office was an interesting place to be. And I applied for God knows how many jobs at the time. I got offered 2. One got withdrawn, and the other one luckily stuck with me, and I ended up walking into an investment department of what was a really good little business at the time, and that was the start of it. But it was a bit of fluke, really, fluke.
Very good. And how does the industry feel now compared to when you started back then? Has your job changed much in that time, or is a commercial advisor, quite similar now to how it was back when you started?
Well, my job's changed a lot because I've got all these younger guys doing all the hard work for me. That's why it's changed. That's great. So my job's a lot easier than it used to be. I think it's tougher now, actually. I think it's tougher. I think it's tougher to get an edge on information. People are much more connected. It's much easier to connect with people. Obviously the level of transactions, is obviously gone up incrementally over the years, notwithstanding what's going on at the moment. And there's new buyers coming into the market the whole time. It's harder to have a grip on who might buy it, the right buyer might be on any transaction. There's a lot of one-off buyers that have been coming to the UK over the last 5 or 6 years. And it's as potluck as to whether you pick the right guy to act for. I think it's tough now, actually, in a way, but still enjoyable.
And in that more kind of, I suppose it's more of a real estate's become more globalized, hasn't it? And how do you build up your connections and your contacts in a world where it's full of US private equity firms and global asset managers? And how do you go about doing that?
It's just a matter of putting yourself about, really, and trying to keep up to date with trends and follow the money. But you've got to keep an eye on your key relationships. There's always going to be new people walking in and walking out, but the relationships that you build up over your career that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, you have to keep those strong and not be diverted all the time. And if you end up not being with the right party for a deal or whatever, every dog has its day, and those your clients are your long-term clients. Most of my clients have been my clients for probably 25, 30 years, and there'll be times in the market when they're really competitive and times when they're not. And you've just got to get the balance right between new money and also keeping the people, that you've known for years, serviced in the right way. I mean, obviously the whole globalization and international network was one of the reasons that, I was keen to go to CBRE in 2012. Obviously because the reach that CBRE has and the other big firms is amazing in that regard.
I mean, it was one of the questions I'd lined up to ask you. You've seen both sides, niche and obviously the big firm. Is there still a place for both?
100%. 100%. I mean, there was a few comments when I sold Frank Warwick that that was the sort of change in the niche business, was it the end of a niche business, etc. It never was. I never believed it was. I mean, I sold the business because it was the right thing to do at the time, with a collection of people I had and where I was personally, and in terms of what I'd done. I've been doing it for 24 years as a niche, and I kind of felt that I wanted to just change the way I wanted to do things. But if you look at what's going on in the market now, I mean, the niches that are out there at the moment are doing fantastically well. I think there's two types of niches. The way I categorize them, I think you have sort of horizontal niches, if you like, who similar to what Frank Warwick was, which do all sectors across the country at a capital markets level. And then you have the sort of the more vertical niches that specialize in a sector or two sectors, but they have the occupational advice in-house and the landlord and tenant advice in-house. And you look around the market now, and those guys are doing really, really well. Similarly, the big firms, a lot of the big firms, CBRE included, and Jones Lang, etc., and some of the other firms have gone through a period of change over the last 3 or 4 years. There's been a turnover of staff, just kind of the inflection of time and the evolution. But actually, when I look at the business, look at CBRE now as a business, it's a very, very different team, maybe across the capital markets that was there 3 or 4 years ago, but it's again in really good shape, and a lot of youngsters coming through and proving their worth.
You mentioned the youngsters at the start. They're doing all the hard work and heavy lifting for you at the minute. I wonder what catches your eye for people that come into the CBRE ranks and do their APC. Is there any characteristics that normally stand out for you?
Well, I mean, the HR teams in the businesses, they do, the process. They run these long processes, and they're difficult. And I guarantee you, I would have failed that process. I would definitely have been unemployed had I had that when I started. So they've got the process that obviously they know what they're looking for. Once they sort of hit my world, it's just a combination of factors, really. I don't have a checklist. It's it's passion for the asset class, enthusiasm to learn, the retention of that learning, putting that learning into use, having a good idea about just how numbers work on modelling and numeracy and mental arithmetic. I think people with a good memory are vital. I mean, you can be in a meeting with someone or whatever, and something comes up, and you want to know who bought that asset, when it was, who was the underbidder, what was the price. A good memory is a massively big asset in what we do. So that's a good thing to see. I think also, I think it's important that the guys and girls get on with other people in the business and outside the business, to the extent that they can read a situation, they can read people, and they can kind of achieve the optimum results for what they're trying to do. But I also want to see people that have got a bit of tenacity, that won't get pushed around too much either when things are going wrong. And there was a football manager years ago came up with this phrase, bounce back ability. And I think that's really important. I think, there's a lot of guys and girls who, maybe get let down at last minute on a transaction. Maybe they didn't bid, or they didn't bid enough, or they didn't get it, or deal falls out of bed. You've got to get yourself up and dust yourself off and go again. And going into kind of a 2-week sulk or a downer on it just doesn't help anyone really. So that bounce back ability factor, I think, is really important in what we do in terms of agency.
I'm glad you brought in the football analogy there, because Martin Samworth described you as the Lionel Messi of the property world. When he
never said that when he was negotiating the price beforehand.
So, I mean, does property still bring in the best talent? Not the best football talent, but the best property talent. And how can it continue to do that? And what can it do better?
It's an issue, actually. There was, I think, one of the big problems with the industry is obviously downward pressure on fees. And what downward pressure on fees normally means is that, the level of remuneration possible for agents in some, it's all, my stuff's all capital markets based, by the way, but the level of remuneration for agents obviously is lower. And you'll get to maybe a point where there's an 18 or 19-year-old thinking about a career who's super talented, who actually will look around the different businesses that he can get involved with, and actually maybe he doesn't believe he can make a decent living in property. So I do think it's an issue, and I think we have to find a way to remunerate stellar talent well to compete with other businesses. There was an article in one of the papers about, I don't know, must be 5 years ago now. I don't know where it came from, but it was all about how much investment agents can make in the business and what they do and all that. And it quoted some of the niche guys at the time. And I guarantee you, after that article here, there would have been an influx of new sort of higher level, better quality talent trying to get into the business, because quite frankly, they thought the rewards were higher. At the moment, I think the talent pool is quite incredible. Actually, most of the youngsters I come across, I'm just super impressed with, actually. And when I say within that, I'm talking from new grads all the way through to mid-30s. And if you look at from the time from when these guys came into the business, someone in their mid-30s would probably have come into the business at the beginning of the GFC. And if you look at the ride they've had since then and people in between, it's been a really tough time. We've obviously had the financial crisis. Years 12, 13, 14 were sort of stable. And then from 2015 to the present day, there's been 3 general elections, a Brexit referendum, a prolonged Brexit process where still no one really knows the answer, and now a pandemic. I mean, it's been a hell of a ride. So, for people out there, maybe they're losing a bit of heart and think, God, this is really tough work. It is. But hopefully you'll get some more normality and things will come back to normal, and you'll have a marketplace where it's easy to operate in.
Do you think? I mean, I'm not going to ask. This is not going to change overnight. But do you think that should lead to a change in the fee structure, and there should be more of a retained payment on clients' work and advice? And does that then set people apart in this broker versus commercial advisor argument as well?
I'm not sure about the retainer bit, because I think retainers can, I think they're good if for the right type of client in the right job. The whole pitching process is really difficult as well. I think invariably, I'm not sure that ends up with the vendor getting the right position. I mean, if I was a vendor of a decent sized asset, I would choose my man who I knew and trusted. I'd tell him I was going to pay him properly, and I'd tell him to go do it, and I was putting it on him to make sure he delivered. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the kind of restructuring fees and, you know, and changing retainers, I'm not sure that's the way forward either. I think you've got to make sure you employ the right people who are going to care about what they do. And when they care about what they do, they want to be well paid for it. Why shouldn't they? And you get a better result. I mean, I've seen countless examples of owners of real estate being sort of penny wise, pounds foolish, you know, where they haven't paid the right amount of fee, or they've used the wrong advisors based on fee quotes, and actually ends up costing at the other end if you don't get the right people for the job.
I was going to ask you if you thought the traditional role of investment advisor was under threat, but you've kind of answered that. As long as they're good, the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the business is obviously a bit of a move for disintermediation. I mean, you know, some clients don't want to have buy-side advisors, particularly some of the overseas investors. Personally, I've seen them do that, and they try to play valuation fees rather than proper advisory fees on acquisition, and maybe they end up doing a wrong deal at the back front end. Whereas if they were better advised, maybe they'd do a better deal. It's you know, then we've also got different ways of selling real estate. There is a move again for some big sales for buy-side agents maybe not to be engaged early enough in the process, and for vendors agents to go straight to buyers, etc. That's the way it is at the moment. It's not the way we did things or the way I would do it. I would always try and get an agent involved on the buy side, because I think they add value. I think they keep a buyer focused, they make sure it's top of the pile, you know, they know how to deal with situations, they get the work done. That's how I prefer to operate in the past, but things have changed a bit.
And I mean, obviously everything's going more digital, and do you think that you'll see more of that in the investment world? Obviously there's various platforms out there that you can traditionally kind of on the lower lot size, but is that something you would expect to see more in the future? Will we see a £100 million UK office building up for sale online soon?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the online auction stuff, I think, is really useful. I think it works really well, for sure. I can't see big lot sizes getting onto that sort of platform anytime soon, in truth.
Great, no worries. We've actually had a few Q&As come in while you've been speaking, Franco. I'm an 18-year-old undergrad who just started the degree. As someone who is aspiring to get into the property career path, is there any advice you can give me to get ahead and set me apart from the competition?
I think the most important thing is to get out there and get some experience. You know, even if it's unpaid during the summer holidays, just go and offer yourself and just get around into an office and when you do get a place into an office, just do the simple things that they ask you to do and do it well, because that will build their confidence in you, and you'll get more responsibility while you're there. So they ask you to photocopy something and do a red line around it. Do it right. Don't make a mistake, because then you'll get something more challenging, and it'll develop from there. But I think just get yourself some experience somehow during the summer months. I mean, the university courses sort of end in April or May or whenever it is, and they go back in October. So, there should be plenty of scope to get out there and actually just try and get some experience if you possibly can.
Do you reckon quite a lot of it's an attitude approach type thing when you meet people, or the junior people in CBRE? That's what you notice first, is it, rather than say technical knowledge, or a bit of both?
I think I've learned as I've got older not to make snap judgments on people, actually, which took me a while to learn. And it's only when you work with guys for say 3 or 4 months where you really get the whole picture. It must be quite daunting going, if you're a young person going into sort of CBRE type atmosphere early on. They do the graduate program. All the big firms do brilliant graduate programs. I've had, one of my kids went through Savills, one went through Jones Lang, another one's going through Jones Lang, and the one's going through Knight Frank. And what they do for I've got 5 kids, 4 in property, and one of them, the black sheep of the family, is doing medicine, bless her. So, but all these graduate programs are fantastic. So I think, we look at, I don't think many have got a bad attitude. I think it's more just making sure they get the right guidance and they get the right confidence. Someone coming into the business, they have to strike a balance between setting themselves sensible expectations, not going, being unrealistic as to what they can achieve in the first year or 2 years, but equally they've got to get the balance with trying to push themselves on as well and not being complacent and not getting into a rut. And it's that balance really. And to a certain extent, that's how they're going to be. They need to be led in the right way as well. They need to have the line manager that's prepared to, to show them the right direction really.
Is it very tricky for these these younger surveyors who are making their way in the world just now? Because quite a lot of it's about osmosis, isn't it? And picking up knowledge from watching how more senior people operate and are on the phone and face-to-face meetings. And I'm sure you've got a fair degree of sympathy for people in the current situation. Just
horrendous for them, actually. As I say, I've got two of my daughters were on furlough for a big chunk of April and May or whatever, and they've been working from home, before that and since that. It really is difficult. You just can't replace that day-to-day contact. Even when you go on a Zoom call and you get them on a Zoom calls tend to be kind of very focused on whatever the subject matter is for that call. The other stuff that happens before and after and that interaction doesn't happen. Everyone's got another Zoom call to jump onto or whatever. It's just not the same. And the osmosis point is a great point. The amount of information and technique and knowledge you pick up just being next to someone more experienced, listening to them on the phone, looking how they look at a problem, how they appraise a problem, it's just invaluable, and you just can't get it any other way. So I really do feel for them, actually. It's tough, very tough.
Hopefully we get back towards normality next year and we change that. And we have obviously got some questions about your deal making prowess, which is obviously fairly legendary in the market. We've had a few people saying, what is your most challenging deal in your career to date?
Oh, blimey. They're all challenging. I only get difficult ones.
Have they got more challenging? Are they more complex and trickier to complete now than they used to be?
It depends on how you do the job. There are some agent brokers out there that get a deal, put it into solicitors' hands and let the clients kind of run the deal, and they kind of get told what the issues are once they've occurred or become a problem, and then there's other agents that get right into it and understand the detail and try and foresee the problems, come up with solutions. So it ends up being more complicated and more involved. I think also there's an awful lot of transactions, especially at the larger end, that happen on a corporate basis. So sometimes I feel like I am an accountant, even though I said I didn't want to be an accountant when I started. I actually feel like I am an accountant at times, and we're in the middle of one at the moment where, it's really, the whole thing's kind of the big debate on tax and stuff on offshore vehicles, onshore vehicles, and it's definitely an added layer of complication. But I enjoy it. It's that getting involved in that sort of detail really is what stimulates me really.
So would you say for a proper advisor who kind of sees those problems before they actually occur, is it quite a multi-layered person? They'd have the property skills, they'd have quite a lot of intel on debt and finances. And obviously,
I think so. I mean, but there's no right or wrong. I mean, if someone wants to be a pure broker and have a relationship at that level that you have, and that's how they float, then that's fine. It's not a problem. They can still make a good living, and I'm sure have a great time. For me, I've always wanted to go beyond that and actually really get into the bones of it, and understand. I look at all different investment opportunities, from the stock market to bonds, etc., different sectors within our market, the financing that's available in our market, the relative returns, the availability of capital, all that stuff, because to me that's part of being a businessman. And I don't think there's an agent and a businessman. I think you can be a businessman agent where you really understand all the bits, to help advise in the best way you can. But other people make an absolute great living doing it the other way as well. It's just not the way I've done it.
Yeah, but plenty of ways to skin a fish.
Exactly.
Rather than put you in the awkward question of saying your most tricky deal, what's your favourite deal you've completed?
They're all favourites. They're all favourites on the day you do it. I mean, the reason I still do this is that isn't for it's not for the money or anything. And it really is.
You still get the thrill of the deal.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually that. It's the afterglow, I call it. You've done a deal for a client. He's happy. You're happy. You've either you think you've bought a good deal, or you've sold a good deal, or whatever, and you've come through this process together, and it's sorted and it's done. And there's a 2 or 3 day period where you feel good about what you've done. Your client loves you. He thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread. You love your client because he's happy and he's going to pay you a decent fee. Everything's good. That's why I do it. So they're all good. I mean, I'm working on something at the moment which has been a total pain. I've been on it for a year. It's actually getting smaller and smaller. It's secondary retail, so the value of it has come right down. I'm working on it, and I'm working with Joe Hankin at my place on it, and he can't believe that we're still at it. We've been at it for 18 months, but we won't give up on it. We're going to keep working on it. We're getting them all done now. We're making progress, and when that deal happens, it's not a big deal, but it's going to give us a lot of it's going to give us a lot of satisfaction.
Indeed. And I mean, that was one of the questions that someone's put in. I mean, during this particularly tough period for sections of the market, what's your advice for maximizing the chances of closing a deal once you brought it out?
So say that again. Sorry,
I was just saying, someone wanted to know, during this kind of pretty tough period in the market, apart from logistics, obviously, what's your advice for maximizing the chances of closing a deal once you've brought the kit out to the market? Any tricks or tips?
I think do your DD first and make sure that if there are any skeletons in the cupboard, you're aware of what they are and you can manage it. Again, we're involved in a couple of things at the moment where we found things that the vendor says they didn't realize were the case, which actually make the properties quite difficult to deal with where we're trying to buy stuff. Because at the moment, obviously, any issue may well be taken advantage of, because and buyers are generally nervous, other than logistics and industrial. Buyers are generally nervous, and if there's a reason for them to get more nervous, it's not going to help you. So I think number one, make sure you know what you're selling, and make sure so liaise with the solicitors before you go to the market. Ask them, are there any sort of red or amber flags in terms of the title and the legals? Structurally, is there anything in the properties that you need to think about? And get yourself as well prepared as you can. And then probably the other thing you might want to do is you might always just want to see what the financing market is like for that asset or that portfolio, so that at least you can talk to buyers and give them an idea as to where the banking might come from.
Great. And we're probably already over time, but I've got a final question for you. And I haven't seen you do a logistics deal yet, but I might be wrong. If you were starting out your career now, are there parts of the market that you would be particularly attracted to, and why?
Well, I used to do a lot of logistics deals, but the problem was the issue was when I went to the likes of Trafford Park, for example, we bought and sold. We did lots of stuff for Brixton back in the day. I did a lot of logistics at the time when it was less fashionable. The issue was when I went to CBRE, I sort of ended up plugging gaps. And it was sort of client-led, and I never went and worked in one specific department, and it was always sort of more stuff to do in other sectors. So where would I go now? So obviously logistics is the hot place to be. I mean, if you want, and European logistics, I mean, they're having a great time for sure, and we're actually. I am actually actively involved in that sector now again. That would definitely be the place to focus on if you wanted kind of an exciting short-term career. Exciting career in short term rather. I think now though, if you had a longer time horizon, I think a really interesting space is the regeneration and repurposing of a lot of our towns and cities that have obviously gone through great structural change over the last 5 to 10 years. And I see a lot of these places on my travels, and I think there's a massive program there of repurposing and restructuring in those towns and cities. I think that will be an exciting area to be in, but it's going to be more of a slow burn and be quite difficult. You got to have patience to get involved in that stuff.
I think we're going to need real specialists to repurpose retail and integrate shopping centres properly into regional towns and centres. Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly. And I think that one is what I would say to people on the call, especially the youngsters, is get in your car, go and see towns, go and see cities. If you're not familiar with certain areas of the countries, get out and see them. I mean, I spend probably more this year, but I probably spend even now a day or fortnight in my car, and I'm not sure that's enough. Just to get out and you just feel the vibe in a town or city. And if you're going to go into Leeds to look at an industrial estate, don't just go to Leeds to look at an industrial estate and come back. Get into the town centre, walk the town centre, understand where, you know, the retail is and how the offices work and all that, and actually use your time. But get out in your car, and don't do everything on Google Earth.
You've got to kick the tires, don't you? And
Exactly.
In that shopping centre world, I mean, we're going to see some more liquidity in that sector next year?
Well, there's a couple. You would hope so. There's some big assets out in the market now, which obviously CBRE and a lot of the other firms are involved with at the moment. You know, with a bit of luck, there will be more liquidity in that market. We think the retail warehouse market is got increased liquidity. I think that will continue. People look at that as an alternative to other returns in other sectors, and will prove to be maybe a bit more flavour of the day going forward next year. But you know, the whole thing really does depend on what sort of recovery we have coming out of the pandemic, and of course we've got the small issue of Brexit and the after effects of that to deal with, which everyone's kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, it's been quietly making itself known again. That Franco, we've actually run out of time. Really appreciate you for going through those questions with me today. What I will say is we've actually had tons of questions that come in through the Q&A function, so I might get you to answer some of those via email, and I'll return them to the people that sent them in, if that sounds okay to you as well.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Thanks for your time today, Franco. Really appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.